This is the Frat House Sports Show. And now, for this week's completely different and often humorous take on everything sports, here are Frat House Mike, Uncle Mark, and Sidekick.
All of a sudden, we get the reports on Friday with regard to Adrian Peterson. And I'm just gonna couch it this way, gentlemen, because when I first got the first glimpses of the reports as they were coming over social media, Twitter and Facebook, and I guess it was around, my guess is that we were talking, it would have been like mid-afternoon on Friday. Adrian Peterson indicted on child abuse charges. Indicted now. I'm sitting there and I'm kind of going, oh, now wait a minute. What's this all about? Now, come on. I mean, I was slightly incredulous, I guess, coming off of the week that we had just had. And I'm sitting there, I'm going, oh, now wait a minute. Somebody trumped something up here, you know, and it's all coming to play or something. Somebody moved things along right at the right time to get this to all hit within the week that we've had all this brouhaha with Ray Rice. But then later that afternoon and later that evening, I began to sit down and begin to read the reports and read the police reports and read the indictment reports and what have you. And I just shook my head in absolute disbelief. I couldn't believe what I was reading. And as alarming as, I guess, seeing the video last Monday, of Ray Rice that ultimately was released, of him decking Jayne Rice inside the elevator, which we had not seen before last Monday. As alarming as that was, I was just as sickened, if not more, by simply reading the accounts of the situation between Adrian Peterson and his 4-year-old son. And I guess before I get into any of the details, and we really don't need to even get into details, but I really, when I talk about details, I'm talking about, you know, events as they went down the line over the past number of days. I guess I'll throw it out and start it out this way. Open it up to anybody that wants to jump in. Reactions from all of you, similar to my own or no? I was modestly incredulous on the front end, and then I guess, as one would say, as I continued to explore, became a believer. Anybody's thoughts here?
Well, you know, I kind of felt the same way. I'm like, okay, you know, this is, you know, how do I want to phrase? This is a Southern mentality. The whole, you know, the switch, the idea of a switch. You know, it's been joked about. I've joked about being in the military. You know, hey, go out in the yard, get me a switch. Don't come back with nothing too small, otherwise I'll go out there and get it myself, and you won't like it. Kind of, you know, mentality. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, so, you know, yeah, okay, he spanked his kid. You know, I think this generation that's coming up needs to be spanked more often. Then I saw the pictures of his son. And like you, I agree that is not disciplining a child. That is abuse. When you leave welts all over the child, you know, and, you know, broken skin and stuff, that's abuse at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to admit it, but as I read it, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, and like yourself, Sidekick, kind of thought to myself, okay, wait a minute, you know, he gave his kid a whack on the behind, but as I read through it, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this had to have taken a period of time. This kind of punishment had to go on for a period of time. You know, you're talking about, you know, making the switch. I mean, dear God, shoving leaves in the boy's mouth? It's a 4-year-old kid. Are you freaking kidding me? This sounds like a pattern of abuse that we hear so frequently from others in abusive situations, other types of abusive situations, where it was done to me, I've got to perpetrate it upon others. I was astounded at the level. This goes well beyond, as you just pointed out, Sidekick. You know, my kid stepped out of line, you know, whack. All right, now you'll remember not to do that again.
Yeah, see, and the other thing is, I was extremely cynical in the beginning of this. Because if you remember last year, we had the news of one of Adrian Peterson's sons dying at the hands of the mother's boyfriend.
Correct.
Due to abuse. So I'm going, all right, this is, this whole thing, this is, I'm going to play to the public, this is going to turn into a custody thing, he beats his son, because he spanked him. But, and even when I was reading some of the, initially reading what some folks were paraphrasing from reports, I'm like, okay, But then I actually saw the pictures, and, and it's like, I don't know if you've seen the pictures.
Yeah, I have some of them, yes.
It's like the front of the legs, the sides, the back. Yep. I mean, that,
That's what I'm saying. It appeared to me that it had to take a period of time in order to inflict this kind of damage. This is not a simple, hey, bam, there's a hit with a short limb of a tree. All right, there you go. There's one. No, this was a period of time. I mean, it was repeated. All right. All right. I don't want to dwell on the circumstances because we've seen those.
Right.
In many respects, it's kind of like the situation a week ago with Ray Rice. We saw the video. The real story from the standpoint of the NFL really began to develop there after the fact. The Minnesota Vikings made Adrian Peterson inactive for Sunday's game. Now, mind you, this is all breaking on Friday.
Right.
So the Minnesota Vikings made him inactive. And we're going to talk about exactly what that means with regard to the CBA anyhow for a second. Following that, we find out then that he would be practicing with the team and he would be prepared to play this coming Sunday against the New Orleans Saints. And then we find out, I guess it was either yesterday or the day before, by Tuesday or Wednesday, I guess it was Wednesday, that in fact team management came out at like 2 o'clock in the morning and made the decision that he would be on something called the exempt list, which is a very, very bizarre. I'm sitting there going, what the hell is this status? Exempt? Yeah, apparently this is something that is reserved for players who are, according to Pro Football Talk, in unusual circumstances, and that it's only to be declared by the commissioner themselves. Well, I didn't hear Roger Goodell say anything about this situation so far. In fact, we haven't heard anything from Roger Goodell in damn near close to 10 days, I think, at this point. But all of a sudden now we've got this exempt list thing here. All right. And now we're finding it's being applied to other players as well. And we'll talk about that one in a moment because this is all new territory for all of us. We've got injured reserve. We've got all kinds of other lists that come down. But now we've got one called the exempt list. I guess this is going to become more vogue in the future. Can anybody clarify what the hell the exempt list is by virtue of the CBA? Anybody out there? I've got a description in front of me, but can we run with this one on the exempt list? Any clue on this?
I can give you a little clue.
Yep.
Apparently, it's and there are teams complaining about it. It's not being used properly.
Correct.
It's a commissioner-approved list to hold a roster spot for a player. Originally, it was designed for a player coming back off a longer suspension. In other words, say somebody was out for 8-10 weeks, like somebody like Josh Gordon, for example, and he's not ready to play the week he's back. It's a special list a player can go on, for that kind of purpose. And a lot of teams are complaining it was not used properly in this case for Greg Hardy and Adrian Peterson. As a matter of fact, the most recent Jonathan Dwyer, the Cardinals, they put him on a whole different list that he can't even come back. He's done as a Cardinal for this year.
Except he's being paid, according to according to what I read.
He's on a football injury. It's a non-football injury.
Non-football injury.
I don't think they have to pay. Now they might to avoid, issues with the NFLPA, but they don't have to pay him on that list. But anyway, that's the long and short of it. Apparently, Roger Goodell has signed off on the first two, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Would a fair classification based upon your description there, Brandon, be that the purpose of this was to be a short-term disability?
Yes.
Would that be appropriate?
It was supposed to be a short-term, with commissioner approval, list that the player could go on to prepare to play for the season.
As opposed to, say, just putting them on an injured reserve.
Correct.
Okay.
I think what they're trying to do is leave it open in case either one of them comes up without, that it comes out that they're not guilty for whatever reason. But I think that all hopes of those options are getting slimmer and slimmer.
Yeah, I think what the league and the owners are kind of doing here is, pardon the pun, but they're calling an audible. And, here they have a roster list that the NFLPA, Adrian Peterson, the guy from Carolina, Hardy, the commissioner, and everybody have agreed that, hey, due to the circumstances surrounding these two cases and and all the drama that's going on right now, we're going to put these two guys on this list so that, teams don't have to cut them. It's kind of a little bit of like a save a face, like, okay, we're going to suspend these guys, but there's certain rules around suspensions. There's a 4-game max suspension and things like that in the CBA. So what this is like an indefinite thing. So they're saying, okay, look, to save face, we're going to put these two guys on this list where they can get paid. They're, quote unquote, suspended. They're not playing while their legal proceedings are going on. Because I think it becomes a touchy situation because you've got guys that have, the whole premise is you're innocent until proven guilty, kind of thing, and that's where the league. We saw that last year with the guy from Dallas that killed his best friend, in a drunk driving incident. Remember,
your buddy, your buddy that you went off on the other,
and he was trying to save the league and stuff, embarrassment, and that's the issue, We're not supposed to presume that you're guilty, but you've had you're in some sort of trouble and we're waiting for it to pan out. So what do we do with you? Do we suspend you and say, hey, we think you might be guilty, or do we let you play and then deal with the backlash from people saying, well, he's done this, horrible, horrible thing, but you're letting him play. Well, but he's not, he's not been judged guilty yet. So you're judging him as guilty. You know what I mean? It's really a touchy situation.
Okay.
And I think that's what they're using this for.
Let me get a clarification on something here, and maybe Brandon might know better than most. I don't know. I mean, anybody can jump in because this is really a CBA issue. If I'm not mistaken, Minnesota was prevented from actually permanently, say not permanently, but say season long, making Peterson an inactive player for the entire season. If I'm not mistaken, that is a violation. That would be a violation of the CBA, that you cannot be listed as inactive for an extended period of time. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It goes back to what the Eagles did with Terrell Owens and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did with Chad Johnson, or not Chad Johnson, the other one, the one who's on primetime on Sunday. He's slipping my mind. Used to be at the Jets and wrote a book. Anyway, they're not allowed to just indefinitely lock a player out. Keyshawn Johnson, that's who I was looking for.
I was going to say Keyshawn. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Anyway, so because of the history, they can't do that. They either have to do a 4-game suspension, or Goodell would have to suspend them based on the disciplinary program.
Code.
But that they're not supposed to do until it's adjudicated. So they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place with these guys right now, because neither one of them are going to have a quick trial, more than likely.
Had Minnesota come down and suspended Peterson, then in essence that makes him a free agent. Would that be correct?
No, they can't. No, not as a suspension. That would have been a 4-game suspension. The only thing would have made him
that's the maximum they're allowed to do?
Correct. But
okay.
they probably don't have grounds for, because it's supposed to fall into the league disciplinary program after the case. They have a 4-game detrimental to the team kind of thing. He really didn't do anything that would work for. They're really stuck with these two guys. Well, 3 if you count the one in 40 in San Francisco.
Yeah.
But they're not. They're refusing to do anything with him for whatever reason. They seem to think he's innocent. So we'll see.
Okay, now you just brought up the X factor in all of this, and that's been Roger Goodell, because we've heard absolutely zero from Roger. Well, since when? When was the last time we officially heard from Roger at all? I'm even trying to remember. Was it shortly after?
Is
he on the exempt list?
He's not allowed to comment, right? He's suspended. He's got to keep
I'm trying to think. Did we actually hear from Goodell right after the inside the elevator Ray Rice video showed up, or was that even just blue smoke and mirrors, and he just kind of disappeared off into the woodwork? This whole thing has just gotten, and you got to wonder whether the lack of leadership at the top, or at least visible leadership, is really what's shaking this whole thing down. Anybody's thoughts here?
Yeah, here's what I want to say about Roger Goodell. Okay, this guy might be. Some would argue it's going to happen. Some would say maybe not next year. But this guy's in probably the waning days of holding the job as commissioner. Now, what he's done well is he has marshaled the product and the avalanche of merchandising to such an extent that there's nothing that's going to stop the NFL. We have a game tonight, and I'm looking forward to it, okay, because I'm an NFL fan, and I want to see what the Buccaneers do down at Atlanta. So, in that sense, he's been a great commissioner for me, because I'm right on board with his league. But, this is a mess that he has created. And, maybe he has attempted with his imperial sense of, league direction, attempted to bypass the law or side skirt the law. Well, we're going to let that play out. But in the meantime, in our league, I'm going to do this. Wham, down comes the hammer. Or I'm going to let that in. Woof, out goes the light. The problem is right now, in the sick mess that is the NFL, with all of its investigations, allegations, condemnations, certainly more pending litigation is coming, Goodell is the punching bag, and I say rightly so. And nothing spoke volumes like the fact that the man could not, for fear probably of public refute and maybe personal safety issue, appear at the inaugural game at Levi Stadium for the 49ers. If your face of your league can't show up, well, then you got some problems. And those problems are echoing out of Park Avenue and across the country. Right now, administratively, they are in a world of hurt. And I don't know what's going to stop the war or stop the bombs from falling, because there's going to be a lot of bombs that are going to drop right now. That's my impression. Goodell, hey, he's been fine.
Let me ask you a question, though, Uncle Mark, because what liability does Goodell have for these recent issues in light of the fact that really what he did was he disappeared, and let's just say for a moment that his disappearance was as a result of the fact that, and we were talking about it a week ago. It was just a week ago. It feels like it was much longer now. It was as a result of the fact that there was some shame to be felt as a result of his mistake with the suspension of Ray Rice to begin with, in light of what the NFL may have known or did not know or whatever, and now we've got this internal investigation that's going on.
Right.
For him to disappear over these other issues, Peterson's, Jonathan
Greg
Dwyer.
Hardy. Yeah, Greg Hardy.
Well, Greg Hardy, though, was going on before. I mean, that was something that's been an ongoing, simmering situation. The two newest ones are really the Peterson and Dwyer one. What could he have done now to have mitigated those?
Well, I don't know that he could have done anything,
Right.
but I think the greater question is, should he have? I think what Roger Goodell attempted to do, and maybe to his credit, because he was trying to get out in front of what he saw was going to be, possibly a tidal wave, which has become, I believe, a tsunami within the echelons of league admin. He wanted to get out in front on the Ray Rice thing, acknowledge what was there, say, hey, we made a mistake. Okay, here's what we're going to do now. And he swung the pendulum so far and had played a judgment card I don't think he really had in his hand to play. And when he was called for the bluff, he was shown that maybe, I fibbed a little. We did see the tape. Gee, shucks. Oops, my bad. Well, that's not going to wash. That's not going to wash in this, multi-$100 million league or whatever it is, billion-dollar league that he's running. You can't do that. And I think his moral compass was wrong. I think he attempted to re-navigate. I think then it worked against him, because now, despite the fact you're doing the right thing, two wrongs don't make a right, and you were wrong for lying about it before. So now we got you on that one, and he's checkmate. I mean, he's checkmate. He's stuck in a corner. There's really not much room for him. Now, I contend the owners are going to try to wait this out. We're only in week 2, men, of the league year. These owners do not want to have to go to a vote in October and talk about anything more than, increased timeouts or something simple at their next owners meeting. They don't want to be going there to talk about referendum. Let's see who we can get on the ballot to replace Roger. But I think it's melting. I think Roger is melting right now.
This appears to me to be a situation where, not dissimilar to a youngster doing something wrong, running off and hiding because all of a sudden, I made a mistake and I don't want to show my face. And these other issues are breaking. Those are the times that he should be actually stepping up right now and being the face of the whole thing and actually dispelling. He would do himself a favor, I think, to be addressing the Adrian Peterson thing, to be addressing Jonathan Dwyer right now And then that would dispel some of the other problems that we were having a week ago with him. All it's doing now is just festering the problem.
Well, it's a conundrum. I'll tell you what. Coach Rivera was talking today and yesterday to the media. I guess it was yesterday to the media, essentially about the Greg Hardy thing, and how that's worked out. And of course, what did the Panthers do? They let him play. Wait a second, now we're going to back off because they're starting to follow. I mean, if the NFL gets a sneeze, the whole league gets cold. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. And Rivera, coach down there, has in Hardy sort of a hot button subject right now that's in the forefront. And what he did was he kind of commiserated to the media that, our switchboards lighten up, and these poor girls have to answer these questions because people have a lot of emotion, people have a lot of finger pointing they want to do, they have a lot of, hard feelings that they want to express, and these poor women at the switchboard are kind of taking a beating. And he shared it with the media. Well, I can well imagine what's going on in Park Avenue at the switchboard of the NFL home office, right? I can only imagine.
Yeah, we can only imagine, as we've heard about sponsors, beating or saber rattling, Anheuser-Busch saber rattling, others making noise right now. And that's the last thing that this league wants to do. Although I must say, somebody made a good point today. Listen, Anheuser-Busch can walk away. Guess what? There's going to be another sponsor that's just waiting to jump in the wings of Anheuser-Busch and take that one on. Because, look, let's get it straight. We're talking about football here, NFL football. This is the biggest thing going. And as Mark just pointed out, hey, listen, make no mistake, everything that's going on, that's not going to stop me from watching the game tonight.
Yeah, here's okay. Let me first address Arian Foster tweeted, quote, selling poison on that high horse, end quote. Let's see, quote, domestic violence and alcohol, damn near synonymous.
Oh,
end quote.
Wow. Yes.
Yeah. Anheuser-Busch, you're going to come out, sit here going on about it, but yet, hello, what are you doing? You're selling alcohol.
I need a beer.
Most of these things, like, the PFT article I'm looking at here, Ray Rice was drunk in an elevator when this happened. So,
wasn't just Ray Rice,
it was
Ray Rice and his wife.
I think that was a Miller. That was a Miller product.
Oh. Well, yeah, but so these whole companies coming out and saying, "Oh, you better watch how you handle this, Goodell." Sit back, who the hell are we get it. It's all about money, and you're thinking that because you're a sponsor of the NFL that all of a sudden you're going to start losing money. I'm sorry, you're not going to lose any more money than anybody else. Come on.
No, I understand, but listen, and whether they actually do or whether they don't, the bottom line is it makes the news, and that's what the fans hear, and suddenly it creates, it creates a fervor. Real quick, I want to jump in because Brandon, you made a comment the other night on our Tuesday night program that we debuted the other evening, the Red Zone Blitz program right here on Frat House Sports Radio Network. You made a comment the other evening that I just want to kind of follow up with you on because I didn't do it the evening that we had the program. You made the observation that it seems that maybe we do have a problem in the NFL, that maybe, in fact, there is too much ancillary violence. You want to kind of just elaborate on that a little bit? I mean, do you think that there is a problem in this league?
I don't know if it's in the league or just all of, the whole environment in the league. I mean, just as an example, we were talking about Adrian Peterson and getting the switch and all that. Reggie Bush came out in support of, disciplining a child, talking about his 1-year-old daughter, that if he felt that, it's disgusting. And I have a feeling what you're coming into here is some of these guys were raised in that kind of environment. You kind of touched on it a little bit where, it's kind of a learned behavior. And I think that's what's coming out with guys like, Reggie Bush coming out saying I was whipped as a child, when I was bad. And Adrian Peterson said the same thing,
Charles Barkley came out and defended Adrian
Right.
Peterson as well.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, what is with these guys? Oh man, go ahead.
I think what it comes down to basically is like you had pointed out. It's a pattern, a learned pattern that needs to be broken. And I think in today's world there's a fine line.
But,
I think a lot of people would agree. Well, no, hang on a second. A lot of people would agree today's children aren't as well behaved as, say, we were when we were younger. But there's a fine line between getting spanked and a body covered full of bruises and welts like Adrian Peterson's son.
But I guess the
You know what
question I would throw out to that is the NFL the place that we need to be having this roundtable conversation about child abuse? For God's sake, I mean, there was an article I sent over to all of you, I believe, in the outline that I sent, where it asked the question: really, does the NFL need to be the moral compass for everything that's going on in our society? I mean, there's a question.
I don't think it does, but I think what you're seeing is the NFL is so popular that any kind of, touching point like this is going to come out and, show a problem. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, let me paint it this way for you. You look at the NFL or football in general. Football is one of the most violent sports that we have. I mean, sure, these guys were wearing pads and helmets and everything else and that. But these guys, they just sit there and they hit each other and they hit each other. Everything is violent, and I think that plays into it a little bit, But, now you take another violent sport that I'm familiar with, mixed martial arts. Very violent. You're talking about, breaking, doing submissions, choking people out, breaking arms, things like this. Potentially, doing jiu-jitsu, boxing and things like that. But I think that the difference between the two is, in martial arts or in mixed martial arts, you've got your boxing background, your kickboxing, your jiu-jitsu. And in some of this martial arts, there's a respect, and you come up, yes, you're fighting an opponent, but you need to respect your opponent. You go in, you battle, and then you shake hands, and there's an underlying respect element to it. And I think some of that's missing from the NFL. Sure, like hockey, everybody after the game lines up and you all go down the line and shake hands and stuff like that. But I think maybe there's a, I hate to use this word again, but I think there's a violent culture in football where maybe the respect to another human isn't necessarily there.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Well, I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure if it's a straight apples.
Well, it may not
comparison.
be. It may not be, but but I think that's potentially part of the issue there.
Right.
With it, is you've got this culture of violence in the NFL.
Uncle Mark, you want to jump in here for a second?
Well, actually, I don't know. I mean, I don't have a comment. I mean, I think you've covered it. Yeah, it's a violent sport, and culture being what it is. I mean, it's awful. It's awful what goes on. I mean, but the NFL is not unique in having these issues. Here's, I think the difference, and again, it goes back to my contention of why Goodell is fighting for his life right now. I think an attempt was made to morally judge, and unfortunately, incorrectly made judgments by Roger Goodell had elevated his assumption of reach. I can do this. I'm the boss. I'm going to, bam, down comes the hammer. And I think he overreached himself. And you're talking about some mad issues here. You're talking about domestic violence, and you're talking about child abuse. And those things far and away exceed the NFL in terms of what as a society should we really be considering as important here. Mm-hmm. So because he wanted to foray and sashay, because he felt entitled, this being Goodell, into these areas, well, it's the old line. If you lay down with dogs, don't be surprised if you wake up with fleas. And I think Roger has created this problem. I think it's going to be his end. Am I mad about it? No. Am I sad about it? No. Not really. Not really.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, and then the other element to this is, you've got now Brandon Marshall, an issue crept up where there's accusations that the NFL covered up or refused to do anything about
other way.
Alleged domestic abuse with Brandon Marshall when he played for, I believe, the Broncos from 2006 to 2008, and they've got an attorney, Gloria Allred. They've now got an attorney, and they're now coming up and saying, hey, the NFL didn't do this. We're not looking to punish Brandon Marshall in this or look for any kind of legal action against Brandon Marshall. What we're saying is, hey, this isn't an isolated – Ray Rice is not an isolated incident. This is a culture in the NFL. We're seeking the resignation of Roger Goodell.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to
be the outcry is just going to continue.
Yeah, and now this case, I have another case. It's not. It's NFL. It's NFL, but it's not like a domestic abuse or a child abuse thing. And this just broke today. Jerome Simpson, wide receiver for the Vikings, who's already suspended, due to come back next week for a substance abuse suspension. Over the summer, was pulled over and got 3 misdemeanors, including marijuana possession and open bottle in a car. Now, nobody knew anything about this until a blogger started posting this on the internet saying, hey, look, Jerome Simpson got pulled over back over the summer, and nobody said anything about this. So now I think what you're going to see in the NFL, and this where I'm relating it to the abuse stories are, you're going to start seeing internet bloggers, general folks that are poking around on the internet, running Google searches for every, any NFL player that's had any kind of criminal, police run, got pulled, he had a tail light out and got pulled over. You're going to have all these people now all of a sudden that are going to be, all these bloggers are going to be posting this stuff on the internet. Look at this NFL player, look at that, and it's just going to keep snowballing now. People are hunting for the NFL now.
You're creating a perfect segue for me for a moment, because I'm going to play here. I'm going to play here for about a minute or so of Hannah Storm. And now, she's not a blogger. No, we know her name. But I got to tell you something right now. I took a little bit of exception with Hannah's read on the whole thing. It just kind of smacked to me of a little bit of Bob Costas. And, I'm probably going to get a lot of women that really want to nail me for it. So let me throw the number out right now. 347-826-9964. I am calling Hannah Storm out on this. I think this was just nothing more than a lot of yellow journalism right here.
I spent this week answering seemingly impossible questions about the league's biggest stars. Mom, why did he do that? Why is he in jail? Why didn't he get fired? And yesterday, why don't they even have control of their own players? So here's a question. What does all of this mean for the future? What does it mean for female fans whose dollars are so coveted by the NFL, who make up an estimated 45% of the NFL's fan base? Are fans and our families, are we as parents supposed to compartmentalize everything that's happening? Are we supposed to simply separate a violent game on the field from violent acts off the field? And if we do, what message does that send? So here's some more questions. What exactly does zero tolerance mean to the NFL? What does it mean to the coaches, the GMs, the owners? What about the NFLPA? Will the NFL, in all its power, take the lead on the issue of domestic violence? In the NFL, apparently seeing is believing. If the NFL and the Ravens had to see that video to be moved to significant action, then shouldn't those who support the league demand the same, to see action, to see change before believing, as we all wait on the answer to this central question? What exactly does the NFL stand for?
Thanks very much, Hannah. We appreciate your commentary there as you bring in, obviously, one of your children that you want to prostitute out to all of us. Are you kidding me? I was absolutely incensed by it. Thank you, Sidekick. You're absolutely right. The bloggers. Oh, forget the bloggers. It appears some of our major network folk are going to be out and just keep fanning the flame on this. You know, I asked the question, is it concussions that were going to destroy this game that we have dealt with for the past 2 years? Or is it going to be the media themselves that just for kicks and shits and giggles are going to kill it just for their own fun?
Oh, and surprise, surprise, what network? ESPN.
Yeah.
I think her tears during the, her little rant there were, for effect. She was half crying as she was saying it.
There's a tear in my beer.
I think everybody's gonna. I think Uncle Mark said this the best. All the media and all the attention is going to just keep happening till they serve Roger Goodell's head up on a platter. They want a scapegoat. And
dude, I think he could probably donate a kidney to someone now, and it still wouldn't forgive him at this point. I don't know what it's going to take.
He can't say anything. That's why he's not talking. He's smart enough to know if he says anything, they're going to skewer him.
I think he's impotent, though.
Yeah.
I think
you're right.
I think that's exactly what it shows us. It has shown us that he is a cardboard cutout. He's got to stay at his Park Avenue address. He's got to keep low. He's got to shut up. He might be brought in as a witness. We don't know in some of the proceedings that may come forward. This is a nightmare scenario for him. But for me as a fan, I'm still looking forward to Thursday night, Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, Monday night, right? On that, sense, like I say, I have no problem with Roger Goodell because my product's coming my way. You know, I'm a fantasy player. I'm a team guy. I'm loving this. NFL's not going to stop. The problem is the NFL is in problems.
I think Mike hit on it, and I was actually thinking about this, prepping for the show earlier. 2 years ago we said, could concussions end the NFL as we know it? And I'm wondering if all of this could potentially be the unwinding of the NFL as we know it.
Well, I'm wondering if Roger Goodell is suffering from concussion right now.
I'm
playing conspiracy theorist here for a moment. And obviously the NFL has been able to weather the concussion storm. But we know right now that there's a population out there that would like to see this sport eliminated because they think it's basically unsafe and unhealthy. Well, maybe what we're going to do is we're going to do an end around, and we're going to come at this from a completely different direction now. And we're going to attack this sport not from what should be apparently obvious, some of the injuries and what have you that occurred there. Let's go at it from a social moral ground, not dissimilar to what we see going on down in Washington, D.C., where we've got a bunch of felonious fools trying to tell us that a name means something.
Well, you could be right, but I think what you're going to see is it's just going to continue, and the NFL and the owners, their game, as everybody says, it's doing great in the ratings, and I don't think the game itself is going to go away. They're going to end up sacrificing Goodell to appease the masses. And that's how they're going to make this go away. They already know what the end result's going to be. They're just going to let it simmer for a while.
Hey, listen, what did we hear today? The Finance Committee already gave their approval. Now we got to wait until October, 7 and 8 when the owners meet. It looks like the first step has been taken to get Buffalo new ownership. We secure that ownership. And by the way, that owner that we're going to install is going to vote to put Goodell out. There's some irony for you.
Yeah.
All right, so that's who it's going to go to. The guy that's waiting approval will be part of the group that votes.
how about this? You could see a whole different approach to the role of the commissioner for the NFL after this too.
That is
like,
very possible, Brandon.
I
Good
think
point.
that might be actually a good idea.
Yep.
I think you need to
think
take it out of the
that's a
hands
very
of
good
one
point.
person.
Right.
I think you
Make
need to
a
take it
panel.
out of the hands of one person and make it multiple. Correct.
Well, how's that going to
And-
speak to other leagues that have commissioner, though?
I think it
here's
becomes
something
irrelevant. If they feel that it's necessary for theirs, let them come in and address it. I mean, look at Selig jumping on the media bandwagon this week, going, "Oh, Major League Baseball is going to address domestic abuse issues now." Oh yeah, thanks very much, there, bud. Right, on the way out the door, let's go address this one because this is the hot topic. Hey, if Major League Baseball
he
thinks it's
tweeted
right
about
for
that, right?
Yeah, he tweeted.
yeah, no, he didn't tweet about it. He didn't even email about
He
it.
said an email.
But I mean, if Major League Baseball thinks it's the right structure for them, then let them go to it. I don't give a damn, personally. But I think for the NFL, I think that what we have seen, look, here's the difference. And all you have to do is go take a look at the exposés that have been done out there about previous commissioners. Paul Tagliabue versus Roger Goodell. Okay? You've got two completely different management styles. Roger Goodell may have shot himself in the foot multiple times during his tenure. Not one of them being of many the fact he's a micromanager. I want to control everything. I'm going to be the head disciplinarian. I'm going to be the guy that levies the fines. I'm going to be the guy that institutes expansion. I'm going to be the guy that does it all. Well, you know something? Maybe this thing is just too big for one person.